So from the last video, I said if we press this button, we're going to do something with John, and basically we're going to send it to another page. In fact, that's what happens when we press any button or thing on a page. It actually sends it to another page to be processed, and that page is usually a PHP page. In fact, almost always a HTML file is not capable of processing. So we need a new PHP page that we can send the information to. So I'm going to create new. I'm going to write a PHP page. Let me just save it so we can see it in color. I'm going to call this response.php, and I'm just going to put a simple echo message or print statement really. But wow, this worked. To be honest, we need to do a bit more than this. We need to get the value that was passed and do something with it. I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm just going to make sure this file is what happens when we press the button. So I've got a new file called response.php, and it just prints out wow this works to the screen, and that should occur when I press this button, but I've got to amend my code. Now, to make that happen, an attribute of the actual form tag needs to say where to send the information, and it's a strange word. It's action, so that really doesn't describe what's happening. It's just a web page, and inside here I need to put, let's use double quotes, inside here I need to put the name of the file and the path that I want to send my information to. So this one is called response.php. So I might have a great deal of information in here, lots of text boxes, lots of check boxes, etc., etc., and a button that operates when I press it. So let's see what happens now. There's another kind of button that we need to look at. Right. So I've saved it. I'm going to refresh my page. I'm going to press me, and nothing happened. So although this is a button and we're pressing something, it actually didn't send that information. We need to change the type of the button. So instead of just being a button, we need to call it a submit button. So it submits the information to the form. Maybe we need to also say how it's going to submit that. We'll deal with that later. So I've changed it from button to submit, which is exactly the same thing, just the browser will treat it a little bit differently. So I refresh the page, click on press me, and there. Wow, this worked. So it replaced my home page with the response page, and we can see that up here. So it's web server 25, my home folder, and response.php, and a question mark at the end. You've seen that question mark so many times when you've been doing sort of Google searches, and this is where the information is being sort of passed from one web page to another. So let's go back to the web page and let's make a little change. So I've got my text here, which allows me to type it in, but I need to give it a name. And I'm going to call this fname for first name. And what is happening here is that it's going to send whatever I type in this box in a variable called first name to my new web page. And the only thing we'll see is what happens in the address bar. So let's save that and refresh the page because it needs to be reloaded. And if I type Arthur in here and click on Press Me, again I get, wow, this worked. But let's take a look at this line here. So there's my page that I called from the action, response.php. I've got a question mark, which is actually something called get. And then I've got my F name, that was the name I gave to my text box, and the value that I put in into the text box. So I'm going to do a second one now so that you can see what happens here as I pass information from one web page to another. So I need another text box. Now I'm going to be very lazy. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that there. And this time I'm going to call this one surname. So I'm going to be entering the first name and I'm going to be entering the last name. So let's copy that as well, otherwise I won't know what I'm typing in. Let's call this one last name. So I should now have two text boxes on the screen. And one's called first name, one's called S name. Well, let's change that for L name, for last name. There we go. So this time, when I fill the box out and press it, watch what happens in the address bar. So we need to save our file and go back to the original one, refresh the page, and there we go, got first name and last name. And this time I'm going to type Eric. Notice that when I first went into the box, it gave me options from before. So Eric and Smith. There we go, first name Eric Smith. Press the button. There you go, it started up the new page, but take a look here, my response page, question mark, F name equals Eric, L name equals Smith, and I've got an and symbol, or ampersand symbol, separating them. And that will happen, the more things that I put in, it will separate it with an ampersand, then another, this is called name value pair. Name value pair, and that's quite important in computing as a whole, and mostly used in these web pages for passing information. So I've now showed you how to send information. Go back to my web page, Joe Blogs, click press me. This time I've got name is Joe, first name is Joe, last name equals blogs, and the message on the screen, wow, this worked. So all that's working nicely. Normally I would have some programming here to sort of respond to the information that was being passed through, and we'll start taking a look at that in the next lesson.